There exists a particular type of individual who becomes silent whenever relatives plan to gather together. During moments like Thanksgiving celebrations, Christmas festivities, wedding ceremonies, birthday parties, and family reunions, while others enthusiastically arrange their schedules, purchase presents, and organize their calendars, these individuals experience something entirely different. They sit quietly with a gentle understanding, a peaceful acceptance that they will become the person who stays away, the individual who refuses invitations, the one who communicates through messages rather than appearing physically. When others discover this decision, their expressions change immediately, looking at you as though something fundamental is missing from your character, as if you are losing access to some sacred understanding that every human inherently possesses from birth. They repeat those familiar words with confusion and concern, reminding you about family obligations, speaking as if these two simple words should automatically resolve everything and make you reconsider your choice. However, what these concerned observers fail to recognize runs much deeper than surface appearances suggest. Your decision to maintain distance from family gatherings does not stem from an inability to appreciate meaningful relationships or genuine human connection. Quite the opposite proves true, because you deeply value authentic bonds between people. Your choice to create space originates from finally discovering and experiencing what genuine connection actually feels like in its truest form. Something profound shifted within your understanding of relationships and belonging. Individuals who consciously choose to skip family gatherings are not emotionally cold or frozen inside. They have not been permanently damaged or broken by past experiences. Furthermore, they are not fleeing from authentic love or meaningful relationships. Love exists within them abundantly. They simply reached a point where pretending became impossible, where they could no longer maintain the illusion that physical presence equals emotional visibility and true understanding. Because somewhere during their journey through life, a powerful realization emerged within their consciousness that the most profound loneliness anyone can experience happens when surrounded by relatives who supposedly know your history intimately, but actually understand nothing about your authentic self. Their physical absence from family events does not represent rejection of kinship or abandonment of blood relations. Instead, it serves as protection, a shield necessary for survival and well-being. Their nervous system finally learned through repeated experiences to distinguish between genuine belonging and exhausting performance. Perhaps, just perhaps, they are not actually missing out on family connection at all. Instead, they are finally discovering it in unexpected places and relationships where affection arrives without stipulations attached, where inner peace does not require constant pretending and masking, and where home becomes something you deliberately choose and create rather than something predetermined by biological accident. Let us explore what truly happens beneath the visible surface of this decision. The choice to decline family gathering invitations never occurs suddenly or impulsively. No switch gets flipped overnight that transforms someone's perspective completely. Rather, it represents a gradual accumulation of countless small moments where you felt completely invisible despite standing in a crowded space filled with people. Moments where your authentic truth encountered uncomfortable silence or harsh judgment from those around you. Moments where you maintained a pleasant smile while experiencing internal pain because expressing honest feelings seemed far too dangerous and risky. These seemingly insignificant moments pile up steadily like individual water drops, slowly filling a container. And eventually, one particular day arrives when that container finally overflows completely. You do not actively decide to stop attending these gatherings through conscious deliberation. Instead, you suddenly realize with crystal clarity that you have been going solely for everyone else's benefit and satisfaction, never once considering your own needs or well-being. For most individuals walking this earth, family gatherings are intended to function as anchors providing stability. They should generate feelings of security and safety, sensations of warmth and comfort, emotions resembling coming home to a place where you truly belong. However, for certain people, these occasions feel more like theatrical performances requiring careful rehearsal. You step through the entrance door and immediately the costume slides into place automatically. The carefully constructed version of yourself emerges, who laughs at precisely the correct jokes, carefully avoids discussing the forbidden topics, and maintains peaceful appearances regardless of the personal cost involved. You transform into a supporting actor within someone else's carefully scripted vision of what proper family dynamics should resemble. After spending years performing this exhausting role repeatedly, you gradually begin forgetting who you genuinely are when the curtain finally closes and the performance ends. Psychological researchers discuss a concept they identify as relational authenticity, which describes the capacity to present your genuine self within your various relationships. When that authenticity disappears or gets suppressed, when you must constantly edit and censor yourself to become acceptable to others, your brain registers this situation as a fundamental threat. Not a loud, obvious, dramatic threat that triggers immediate alarm, but rather a quiet, persistent erosion of psychological safety occurring gradually over extended time. Eventually, your nervous system learns through repeated exposure that this particular environment, these specific people, require you to disappear partially and hide essential aspects of yourself. Disappearing, even incompletely or partially, demands enormous quantities of emotional energy. This explains why family gatherings can leave you feeling completely drained and exhausted. Even when nothing particularly dramatic or confrontational occurred during the event, you have been managing and controlling yourself continuously throughout the entire duration. Consider the young child who discovered early during their development that their feelings created inconvenience for adults around them. Perhaps they were perceived as excessively sensitive, too loud and disruptive, too quiet and withdrawn, too much of something, or perpetually not enough of something else. They learned to carefully read the atmosphere before speaking any words. They learned which emotions received acceptance and which ones needed immediate hiding and suppression. They learned that affection within their family never arrived unconditionally or automatically. Love came attached to specific requirements and expectations, instructions to become this particular way, prohibitions against becoming that other way, demands to fit precisely here, while avoiding any disruption to established patterns. Consequently, they spent their childhood and perhaps their adult years too continuously shapeshifting and adapting to earn the belonging they desperately craved. However, here exists the fundamental problem with borrowed belonging that never originated from genuine acceptance. It never generates the sensation of true home. You can stand positioned directly in the middle of your biological family and still experience the uncomfortable sensation of being a complete stranger, because they do not actually know you as a person. They know only the carefully constructed version you deliberately show them, the version that has been meticulously curated over years to avoid unnecessary conflict, to keep fragile peace intact, to avoid rocking the boat and disturbing established equilibrium. After years of maintaining this exhausting facade, you eventually begin asking yourself a question that fundamentally changes everything about your perspective. What purpose does it serve to remain somewhere physically where I cannot exist as my authentic self? That question does not represent rebellion or defiance against authority. It represents clarity finally emerging after years of confusion. Your conscious mind finally catches up to what your physical body has understood for years through accumulated experience. This situation does not feel safe at a fundamental level. This dynamic does not feel like genuine love despite the labels everyone uses. Perhaps family, authentic family that deserves the name, is supposed to generate entirely different feelings than this hollow experience. Now let us establish something clearly and directly. Not every individual who chooses to skip family gatherings experienced a horrible or traumatic childhood filled with abuse. Some families never crossed into abusive territory at all. They simply exist in a state of disconnection and emotional distance. They maintain politeness, but remain perpetually distant from genuine intimacy. Their interactions stay surface level, without ever diving into deeper waters of authentic communication. You can sit positioned at a table surrounded by these individuals and engage in conversation for extended hours without ever saying anything genuinely real or meaningful. This particular kind of emptiness, this hollow politeness wrapped in pleasant words, can inflict pain equally as severe as open conflict and confrontation. Because at least conflict acknowledges that something holds importance and matters to the people involved. However, when everything appears fine on the surface and nothing feels real underneath, you experience a particular loneliness that lacks any proper name or description. Psychology professionals use a specific term called emotional neglect to describe this phenomenon. This concept is not primarily about harmful things that happened or occurred. Instead, it focuses on essential things that never happened at all. The meaningful conversations that never ventured into deep territory. The authentic feelings that never received acknowledgement or validation. The critical moments where you desperately needed to be seen and understood, yet nobody actually looked or paid attention. Emotional neglect never leaves visible scars that others can observe and identify. However, it leaves behind a persistent ache, a quiet sensation that something absolutely essential was always missing from your experience. When you develop and grow up surrounded by that type of environment, family gatherings transform into reminders of that painful absence. You find yourself surrounded by numerous people occupying the same physical space, but the connection you desperately crave remains nowhere to be found. It never existed in the first place. Therefore, you gradually start declining invitations when they arrive. Initially, perhaps you create reasonable excuses to explain your absence. You claim to be busy with obligations. You say you are tired and exhausted. You mention not feeling well physically. Eventually, however, you stop providing explanations altogether, because the genuine truth feels too complicated and layered for people who have never experienced what you feel internally. How do you explain to someone that being around your biological family generates more loneliness than being completely by yourself? How do you communicate that silence within your own private space feels considerably safer than noise and chaos in their space? Most individuals simply cannot comprehend that particular choice or understand the reasoning behind it. They view family as an obligation that cannot be questioned, a duty that must be performed, something you do regardless of how it affects your emotional state. Perhaps for them this approach actually works successfully. Perhaps their family gatherings overflow with genuine warmth and authentic laughter and real connection between people. However, for others, those gatherings resemble minefields requiring careful navigation. You spend the entire time navigating old unhealed wounds, unspoken resentments that nobody addresses, and dynamics that have not changed or evolved in decades of repetition. You walk carefully on eggshells, managing various emotions constantly, playing referee between conflicting parties, or worse yet, playing completely invisible while everyone ignores your presence. Here is what proves truly fascinating when you examine this phenomenon closely. The people who consciously choose not to attend family gatherings often prove to be the most emotionally aware individuals you will ever encounter. They have completed the difficult work of self-examination. They have looked honestly at their behavioral patterns, their emotional wounds, and their psychological triggers. They have realized that simply because something carries the label of tradition does not automatically mean it promotes health or well-being. They have stopped confusing loyalty to family with abandonment of self. That awareness, that hard-won clarity, is precisely what grants them permission to choose differently than expected. Choosing yourself over obligation does not constitute selfish behavior. It represents survival and self-preservation. It means recognizing that your peace matters significantly, that your mental health deserves protection, that guarding your energy is not cruelty, but wisdom applied practically. You are not rejecting family members as individuals. You are rejecting dysfunction as a system. You are rejecting exhausting performance as a requirement. You are rejecting the deeply flawed idea that love should inflict pain and damage. However, even equipped with that clarity, even having found that peace, the choice never feels easy or simple. Guilt appears, deep and heavy guilt that settles into your chest, because we receive teaching from earliest childhood that family represents everything important, that blood relations prove thicker than water, that you owe your family members your presence, your time, your loyalty, regardless of circumstances. When you step away from that dominant narrative, even for your own legitimate good, the guilt follows behind you like a shadow. You wonder constantly if you are being excessively sensitive to normal situations. You question whether you are being too unforgiving of past mistakes. You worry that perhaps you are being too harsh in your judgment. You question whether you yourself are the actual problem causing all this conflict. That doubt feels completely normal and expected, because breaking away from family expectations feels like shattering a sacred rule written in stone. It feels like betrayal of something fundamental. Even when you are the person who has been betrayed repeatedly, your mind tries desperately to protect the bond, even when that bond has been consistently hurting you. That demonstrates how incredibly powerful family conditioning truly is. It runs deeper than logical reasoning. It lives embedded in your nervous system responses, in your core sense of identity, in your fundamental understanding of what you owe the world around you. However, here exists the truth that changes everything once you truly grasp it. You do not owe anyone unlimited access to you at the expense of your inner peace. You do not owe anyone a relationship that requires you to betray yourself constantly. You do not owe anyone forgiveness, physical presence, or performance simply because you happen to share genetic material. Love, genuine love that deserves the name, never demands that sacrifice. Real love creates space for you exactly as you are without requiring changes. It does not ask you to shrink yourself to fit smaller containers. It does not punish you for establishing healthy boundaries around your well-being. It does not force you to choose between being honest and being accepted by others. When you realize that fundamental truth, when you truly absorb it into your being, the guilt gradually starts to lift and dissipate. Not all at once in a dramatic moment, but gradually over time. You begin to see that choosing not to attend is not rejection of people. It is reclamation of yourself. You are reclaiming your time, your energy, your fundamental right to feel safe in your environment. You are choosing peace over performance. That choice, quiet as it remains, represents one of the bravest actions anyone can take. Let us discuss what actually happens when you finally make that choice concrete. When you send the text message or make the phone call and clearly state those words, that you will not be coming this year. The reactions vary widely across a spectrum. Some people respond with understanding and compassion. Some feel hurt by your decision. Some respond with anger and frustration. Some attempt to guilt you back into compliance using emotional manipulation. They will say familiar things like reminding you that family is supposed to forgive everything. Or they claim that life is short and you will regret this decision later. Or they accuse you of being selfish and self-centered. Every single one of those statements gets designed specifically to pull you back into the role you have been playing for years. The role of the person who consistently places everyone else's comfort above their own well-being. However, here is what nobody bothers to tell you honestly. Their discomfort with your boundary is not your responsibility to fix or manage. Their inability to understand your choice does not make your choice wrong or invalid. Their reaction, no matter how loud or how painful it feels, does not change the fundamental fact that you deserve to protect yourself from harm. Some families will respect your boundary when you establish it clearly. They will give you space to breathe and exist. They might even engage in reflection about why you needed to step back in the first place. However, some families will not respond this way at all. Some will double down on their position. They will make you the villain in their revised story. They will tell everyone within their circle that you are difficult, distant, ungrateful for everything they provided. They will rewrite history creatively to avoid looking honestly at their own part in the dynamic. As painful as that response proves to experience, it also reveals something important. A family that cannot respect your boundaries is a family that never truly saw you as an individual. They saw a role that needed filling. They saw an expectation that required meeting. However, they did not see you as a complete person. Once you see that reality clearly, the guilt fades even more significantly because you are not losing genuine connection. You are letting go of the illusion of connection that never truly existed. You are releasing the fantasy of what family could be if only things were different, and accepting the reality of what it actually is right now. That acceptance does not mean you stop caring about these people. It simply means you stop sacrificing yourself for something that was never real to begin with. Now, let us address the other side of this experience, the quiet, beautiful side that nobody discusses openly. What actually happens when you choose not to attend? Initially, it might feel empty and strange. The day arrives and passes. You observe photos posted online. You hear stories secondhand. Part of you wonders if you made the right choice after all. However, then something shifts internally. You notice the complete absence of tension in your physical body. You notice that you are not bracing for impact constantly. You are not managing anyone's mood or emotional state. You are not performing for an audience. You are simply existing peacefully, quietly, safely in your own space. In that peace, you gradually start to rediscover yourself. The version of you that was not trying to fit into someone else's expectation or mold. You laugh more freely, rest more deeply, and feel lighter because, for the first time in a very long while, you are no longer carrying the emotional weight of everyone around you. You are not trying to repair what has been broken for years or prove you are enough for people who will never truly see your worth. You are simply existing as yourself, without excuse or performance. And that quiet freedom reveals what family should feel like at its best. Not perfect or conflict-free, but safe, real, and honest. When your family of origin cannot offer that foundation, you have every right to look for it in other places. Sometimes that sense of home appears in friendships where you feel understood, in chosen family who love you without conditions, or in solitude where you finally recognize and accept yourself. Family is not defined by blood, but by presence, steady care, and being truly seen and valued. People who stop attending family gatherings are not rejecting connection. They are searching for a deeper, more authentic kind of connection and refusing shallow versions that only resemble real closeness. For many who step away from biological family, chosen family becomes central. The friend who checks in, the mentor who believes in you, the partner who holds space for your pain, and the community that appreciates you as you are. This kind of family takes time and vulnerability to build, but for someone used to performing in relationships, being able to simply exist feels almost magical. Still, the path is not painless. Even with clarity and peace, holidays can hurt. Watching other families laugh together can trigger an ache for what never existed for you. You may long for effortless belonging, unconditional love, and the feeling of being wanted instead of tolerated. That longing does not cancel the wisdom of your decision. You are allowed to grieve the family you needed but did not receive, to mourn what was missing, and to feel sorrow while still protecting yourself. Grief and boundaries can sit side by side. You can honor your pain and still choose peace. Those who do not attend family gatherings carry a particular strength. It takes courage to admit that something long accepted as normal is no longer working, to choose healing over habit, and to walk away from what is familiar toward what is healthy. You learn how much energy you have poured into pretending and managing others, and you begin to redirect that energy into healing, growth, and nurturing relationships that give back instead of draining you. Over time, you may discover that you no longer have to recover from the very people who are supposed to care for you. Healthy boundaries often lead to greater emotional well-being and less anxiety, and stepping away from harmful patterns opens space for what is truly good for you. Some families can change and heal, but this requires effort from everyone, not just you. If you are the only one apologizing, bending, and trying to mend things, it becomes necessary to ask why you are working so hard for something others will not protect. Choosing to step back is not defeat, it is clarity. Your absence may invite reflection, or it may not, but either way it reveals a truth: your presence was never the real problem. The system and its dynamics were. If you have chosen, or are considering choosing, not to attend family gatherings, you are not alone. Many others are choosing peace over performance and honesty over pretending. That choice does not make you damaged, it makes you brave. You do not owe anyone your presence at the cost of your peace, nor do you owe endless explanations for protecting yourself. You are free to build your own version of home and your own traditions with people who truly see you. Ultimately, you are not running from love. You are moving toward a more genuine, safer, and kinder love, even if it looks different from what the world told you it should be.